The Durban Chamber of Commerce has slammed the N3 truck blockade in KwaZulu-Natal and says it's an act of economic sabotage. Traffic along the N3 at Reenen's Pass only started flowing again last night after a day of blockades by truck drivers. Let's talk about the situation now. We're joined by Gavin Kelly, Chief Executive Officer at the Road Freight Association. Gavin, always good to speak to you. So every few weeks, every few months, this happens again. The issues are the same. Everyone's saying action is being taken to address it. Yet it's still not been resolved. Why?
Hi, Tim Begila, and good afternoon to all of your viewers. Now, this is the plaguing question, isn't it? And this is what I was trying to drive at when I wrote that letter to the President asking him to intervene, because this has been going on for 5 years at least now, and we've had the violence and the activity at least for 5 years. There have been various task teams put together with various ministers. There have been various stakeholders involved. We've gone to look at the reasons. We've identified the reasons. We've come up with solutions, with proposals, and we are still nowhere. We haven't addressed those core issues, and we're nowhere near getting that sorted out. So I certainly hope that the meeting that is being spoken about in the next couple of days is going to see some action.
And are you taking part in these meetings that are going on at the moment?
Yes, we do play a part in those meetings, and we keep raising our voice, and we keep addressing the key aspects that are not being addressed. And if they're not addressed, this won't go away. We need to deal with those operators, those transporters, those employers, call them what you will, who willingly, knowingly break the law and create the situation that we're in.
So if that is the very clear problem that every once in a while, in fact quite often in a year, resurfaces and there's a blockade of the N3, and yesterday we saw similar scenes elsewhere, in fact, in the country. In the discussions, when you meet as the sector and with government, what is the reason why there's not been any real movement to deal with the problem of the employment illegally of foreign truck drivers, which ultimately then always sparks these protests?
Well, Tim Begila, that's a very good question, because it would seem to be quite a simple process. The Department of Employment and Labour has structures that it has created that can go around and do inspections on various employers. And if you find those employers are not meeting the law, if they're doing things illegally, then close them down. There just doesn't seem to be either the will or the actual might to go and deal with aberrant employers.
And I mentioned that there appears to have been a spread in these demonstrations. In your statement, you said some of the routes affected in the last few days have been in Mpumalanga, across the country to the Northern Cape. That's the N17, the N11, N2, R59, R74. Something else I saw in reporting by the Daily Maverick is that when they contacted the All Truck Drivers Forum, which had been leading some of these demonstrations, the organization this time has not claimed leadership of this latest wave of protests. How concerning is it to you that perhaps there may now be someone else leading the protest?
Well, I think it's going to become more and more of a, I don't want to use the term burning issue, but the frustration levels are going to raise. They're going to get more and more upset as the promises that have been made at various stages along the route have not been met. And you can see now that it's now spreading across the country. At one stage, it was quite centered on the N3. So, yeah, we're going to have to deal with this, and it has to be done now.
You've called on President Cyril Ramaphosa to act. What would action from the highest office in the country look like to you?
Well, I think he would hold his ministers accountable for the actions or the proposals or the suggestions that have been on the table for the last couple of weeks. We have been contacted by the Ministry of Transport during the course of the day. They want to chat about how do they address this. So I think what he needs to have are probably really three things. A, how are you going to deal with those employers? And it's not just the road sector industry. It's across a number of industries. So how are you going to deal with those employers who don't want to abide by the Act? Secondly, what are you going to do about all of these visas and special visas that currently are in the country that expire at midnight on the 31st of December? Remember, we kicked that ball down the road last year at the end of December. So that needs to be addressed. And then finally, how are you going to make sure that the borders are not as porous as they are, that those who come into the country are only going to come in for whatever other reason it is other than work, and if they're coming for work, they must have a work permit.
On the issue of ministers being held accountable, the Transport Minister, Fikile Mbalula, has been seized with this issue, as has Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi. How effective have they been as government leaders in this moment of crisis?
Well, they've now come and started speaking to all of us, but they've been part of the process over the last couple of years. And it just seems that even though they've made instruction, they've been involved in those task teams, it doesn't seem that we've achieved the progress that we needed to have achieved.
Gavin Kelly, Chief Executive Officer at the Road Freight Association. Good to speak to you as always, sir. Thank you.